Hi, it's Dr. Jenny, and in this video today, I want to ask the question, is my metabolism working the way it should? So most of us have at least some basic level of what the metabolism does. It controls whether we're hot or cold, our energy production, our basal metabolic rate, which controls how much we weigh, how much energy we're burning, things like that. So it's really important. The two most common complaints I hear from the people that I work with are, I am tired all the time and I can't lose weight. And so, most of the time, the default when someone goes to their general practice, family doctor, things like that, and they say these things, what do we say to these people all the time? You need to change what you're eating, clean up your diet, eat less, exercise more, all of this really good, well-meaning advice. And if someone has a healthy, functioning metabolism, that advice will work. Now, whether or not the person can stick to a plan and implement that is another completely separate issue. But the main thing is that will work if they do it, if their metabolism is functioning properly. But what I am seeing in increasing numbers of people, and as I run more of these tests, I get more experience and talk to more people and learn more all the time. And what I have found in my practice is that in a lot of cases, people's metabolism isn't working properly. So they can do all the right things and it doesn't give them the results that it should be, and they end up just getting frustrated. And the tragedy in that is that then they go, well, this whole healthy lifestyle thing isn't for me. It doesn't work. And kind of the classic example of what I see all the time is most of my clientele are female, and so I'm working with women, and they'll come in and they'll say, my husband and I, we went on a keto diet, and he lost 50 pounds and I gained 2. So why is that? And we unpack this and we find out that they're not able to use stored fat for energy. That's what we learn when we do our analysis. And if you're on a keto diet, you better be able to burn fat for energy because you're not taking in enough carbs to do it. So that becomes a huge problem. Or they don't have a gallbladder, and so they're on this high-fat diet, and no one bothered to tell them when they had their gallbladder removed that, like, hey, that organ is really important for helping you break down fat, and they just feel terrible too on top of it because they're eating a high-fat diet and they're not adapting for the fact that they lost the organ that helps them handle that high-fat diet. So when someone comes in and tells me I am tired all the time and I have trouble losing weight, there are two things that I evaluate very routinely because they're most often the root cause of this issue. The first is the thyroid. And I talk about the thyroid a lot, like almost every article and podcast and video is on the thyroid because so many people have a problem with the thyroid, and it is just frankly not getting evaluated properly. We throw one little value on a blood test and say, oh, everything looks fine, and really there's a lot more to it. And if you go to the website and read this as a blog article, drjeni.com/blog, you can see pictures. I put up, here's the test that is most commonly run, here's the ones I run, and you can see the difference and see, hey, if you think you might have a thyroid problem, instead of just getting this one test done, let's get all of these done and really dig in and see what the whole thyroid looks like. So we look at the thyroid, but then if you understand that the thyroid is only telling the metabolism what to do. So, if the thyroid needs to speed up or slow down, it affects the metabolism, right? So this energy production cycle. So energy is produced in your cells in the mitochondria, and you might be having flashbacks from biology class here where it's the powerhouse of the cell where all the energy is produced. So inside of that mitochondria, something called the citric acid cycle, or when I went to school it was called the Krebs cycle, so maybe that makes me a little bit older, but anyway, those are the names for it, the citric acid cycle or Krebs cycle. And I also put a picture of that up on the blog too, so you can see it's really complicated, but I put it up there so you could see that in order to turn this wheel to make energy, there are a whole bunch of nutrients that are required. And I want to talk about the most common nutrients because they really affect your ability to produce energy and therefore your metabolism or metabolic rate. So B vitamins. Lots of people are deficient in B vitamins, and when you don't have B1, B2, B3, the energy wheel doesn't turn. So there's B vitamins, magnesium, another huge one that is very, very common for people to be deficient in, and iron. So again, I see this a lot because I work mostly with women who are in that age bracket where they're still cycling, they're still having a menstrual cycle, therefore they're bleeding. Iron is the number one nutrient that's deficient in that age group of a woman. So now we've got an energy production cycle and a metabolism dependent on enough iron that in a lot of cases isn't there. So not having enough iron, boy, not only does that make you lightheaded and dizzy and weak and tired, but now you can't produce the energy in the energy production cycle or the citric acid cycle. So we've got that, and then the citric acid cycle feeds into the electron transport chain, which is ultimately where ATP, which is a big fancy way to say energy, is produced. And so that is dependent on the antioxidant CoQ10. And I find that in increasing numbers, people are aware of that nutrient. But most people, they would never think, oh, maybe I need some more CoQ10. But I see it quite a bit. And so there are other things that are important. So it's not always just as simple as, oh, here's some CoQ10. But in a lot of cases, it's a combination of low iron, low B vitamins, low magnesium, low CoQ10, and you can just start throwing all those things at it. Or, being a doctor means that I'm asking the question and trying to get specificity for each person that I work with. So it's not just like, oh, well, here, just take all these things and see if they work. It's like, let's analyze everything so that we're doing this the right way. We're treating you the way you need to be treated as a person. So you can look at that picture if you want to, but I thought that was a really good conversation for us to have. And then I take that look at the citric acid cycle. That test is called an organic acids test. And I use a combination test that does that and a nutrient test all together. And I do that because if we identify that there are things not happening properly with our metabolism, then the next question is always, well, what is missing? Why isn't that happening? What nutrients are missing? So that's why that marriage of that test is fantastic to me. And again, I put the micronutrient portion of that and the organic acids portion of that on this blog post, so that if you are a visual person and you want to go look at that, you can do that. But just know that there is a way to test for metabolism, whether that's doing what it's supposed to do, and nutrients, whether the right nutrients are there to drive the production of energy. And then the last thing that I want to talk about real quick is being able to turn fat into energy. So that is the ideal design of our body, is for us to be able to tap into stored fat for energy. It's a much more stable form of energy than relying on carbohydrate. So it keeps our energy nice and steady, so we don't have that, oh, I just ate a big meal of carbohydrate and now I need to take a nap feeling. It's when we can use stored fat for energy, we feel our energy levels are steady and stable, and we don't have brain fog, and we don't need a nap, a siesta every afternoon. So it's really important to be able to do that, especially if we're trying to lose weight, because what weight do we want to lose? We want to lose stored fat. And if we can't do that, then we have a big problem. And not having enough B3, magnesium, and an amino acid called carnitine affects the ability for us to take fat, oxidize it, and turn it into acetyl-CoA that feeds into that energy production cycle. So before we can even start turning the energy production cycle, we need to have some precursors there. And ideally, that should be the fats you're eating. Hopefully, they're healthy, things like coconuts and avocados and walnuts and things like that. Or what we're supplementing, like a nice high quality omega-3 oil or something like that. We take those fats, then we use the right nutrients, the magnesium, B3, carnitine, amino acids, things like that, and we break that down and turn it into energy. Well, we can see on an organic acids test whether or not that's happening properly. And so many people get stuck there where they can't burn fat for energy. So then that leads to a really big frustration because they can't lose fat in terms of weight loss. And if they're on a high fat diet, like the keto diet or a low carb diet, something like that, then the source of energy that they're primarily consuming and getting can't be turned into energy, so they don't have any energy. And it's just like they quit and they go, this whole thing isn't for me, it doesn't work. But it does work. You've just got a little broken piece of the puzzle here that we have to support properly. And we can look at urinary metabolites on that test to see whether or not your body is doing that properly. So that is how I answer the question, is my metabolism working properly? I sit down, I talk to a person, then I decide, hey, which combination of these tests? Is it one of them? Is it both of them? Is it all of them? Do we need to look at for you? And then we can see with laser beam focus where the problem is, so that you don't go through all of that, trouble of changing your diet and doing all this stuff only to find out, like, I did all that stuff and I did not get results, so I just quit and now I don't want to do it again because I don't feel like it's going to make a difference, and it was really hard. So hopefully that sheds a little light on that for you and that it's been helpful for you.